The Ohio State Penitentiary in Chesterfield looked like most medium-security prisons. Gray walls, barbed wire, and an atmosphere of oppressive despair. Winston Turner had worked there for 20 years and had seen it all, from petty thieves to murderers, drug addicts to con artists. At 45, he considered himself an expert on human nature, able to tell at a glance which inmates were truly remorseful and which were just pretending. On the morning of March 15th, 2023, Winston was checking the cameras in the women's block as usual. The guard's work was routine: rounds, checks, endless reports. But something had changed with the arrival of a new prisoner 3 months earlier. Tessa Ryan, 38 years old, convicted of credit card fraud totaling more than $200,000. "Good morning, Mr. Turner," she said as he passed her cell. Her voice was soft and educated, unlike the coarse speech of the other inmates. Winston stopped. Unlike the other women in the block, Tessa always looked neat. Her brown hair was neatly styled, and her prison uniform fit her like an expensive suit. But what was most striking were her eyes. Brown, intelligent, revealing not anger or despair, but a kind of sad wisdom. "Good morning, Ryan," he replied, trying to maintain a professional distance. "You know, I see you walk by every day," she continued. "You've been working here for 20 years, haven't you? I can tell by the way you carry yourself. Experienced guards walk differently." Winston was surprised. Prisoners didn't usually strike up conversations with guards, especially new ones. "How do you know?" "I'm observant. It's what got me here, and it's what will get me out." Tessa moved closer to the bars. "Can I ask you a question? Just out of curiosity." Winston knew he shouldn't get into long conversations with prisoners, but something about her manner made him pause. "Go ahead." "How do you stand it? Seeing people in cages every day, knowing that everyone here has their own tragedy?" The question was unexpected. Most prisoners complained about the conditions or demanded privileges, but Tessa was asking about his feelings, about what bothered him. "You get used to it," he replied, even though he knew it wasn't true. In 20 years, he had never gotten used to human suffering. He had simply learned to ignore it. "I don't think so," Tessa said softly. "You're too good a person to get used to it, I can see that." Winston felt uncomfortable. When was the last time someone had called him kind? His wife had shouted very different words before they divorced 4 years ago. His children, who now lived in another state, called once a month out of politeness. "I have to go," he said and hurried down the hallway, but he couldn't get the conversation out of his head. That evening, in his empty house on the outskirts of Chesterfield, Winston thought about Tessa's words. When was the last time he had talked to someone about something other than work or the weather, about something important? The next day, he stopped by her camera again. "You're back," Tessa smiled. "So yesterday's conversation interested you?" "Just doing my duty," Winston lied. "Sure. Can I ask you another question? What do you do after work?" Winston wanted to say that it was none of her business, but instead he heard himself say, "I watch TV. Sometimes I read." "What kind of books?" "Detective stories, mostly. Stephen King." "Oh, I love King. Have you read The Green Mile? There's a prison in that one too, but the guards realize that not all the inmates are monsters." Winston had read the book, but he had never thought of it that way. "It's just fiction." "Not all of it. Sometimes people end up in prison not because they're evil, but because life has driven them into a corner." Tessa turned away from him and looked out the window. "I'm not justifying what I did, but everyone has their own story." "What's yours?" Winston asked, surprised at his own boldness. "Long and sad, like everyone else here." She looked at him again. "What about you?" "I don't have a story, just an ordinary life." "There are no ordinary lives. There are only untold stories." That conversation was the beginning. Every day, Winston stopped by Tessa's cell for a few minutes. She told him about the books she had read in the prison library, her plans for the future, how she wanted to start a new life after her release. Winston talked about his work, his disappointments, how difficult it was to start over in middle age. "You know, Mr. Turner," she said a month after they met, You're the first person in a long time who has talked to me like a human being, not a number in the system. Winston realized that for the first time in years, he felt interesting to someone. Tessa listened to him, asked questions, remembered details from their previous conversations. At home, he looked forward to the next workday. Jerry Parker, his partner and only close friend, was the first to notice the change. "You're acting strange," he said during their lunch break in the prison cafeteria. "You're smiling all the time, going to work like it's a holiday." "I don't know what you're talking about," Winston replied, but he knew he was lying. "It's not about the new girl in Block C, is it? I saw you talking to her." Winston felt irritated. "It's part of my job." "Winston, we've worked together for 15 years. I know the difference between work and personal interest." Jerry leaned closer. "Look, I understand you're lonely after your divorce, but prison isn't the place to look for a companion." "Who said I'm looking for a companion?" "The way you look at her. Be careful, buddy. These people are good at manipulating you." Winston wanted to argue, but he knew Jerry was right. He had indeed begun to think of Tessa not as a prisoner, but as a woman. An intelligent, beautiful, understanding woman who saw him not just as a guard, but as a human being. 2 months after they met, Tessa confessed her feelings to him. "I know it's wrong," she said during one of their conversations, "but I can't keep quiet. You've become more than just a guard to me. You've become a light in this darkness." Winston stood there, holding onto the bars, feeling his heart pound wildly. "Tessa, don't say anything now. Just know that when I get out of here in a year and a half, I'll remember every conversation we've had. You helped me believe that I can change." Winston didn't sleep that night. He knew he had crossed a line he shouldn't have crossed, but at the same time, for the first time in years, he felt alive. The prison warden, Captain Davis, summoned him a week later. "Turner, I've been hearing rumors about your special relationship with inmate Ryan." Winston tensed. "I don't know what you're talking about, sir." "Don't lie to me. You've been working here long enough to know the rules. No personal relationships with inmates. No exceptions." "I'm not breaking the rules. Not yet. But I can see where this is going. Consider this a warning. If I hear anything like this again, you'll be suspended." Winston knew he had to stop talking to Tessa, but he couldn't. She had become the only bright spot in his gray life. Months passed, and their relationship deepened. Tessa told him about her childhood in foster care, how she got into a bad crowd, and her dreams of opening a small cafe after her release. Winston shared his retirement plans and told her about the house he wanted to buy far away from the city. "You know what I think?" Tessa said one evening. "We're both looking for a second chance. You after your divorce, me after prison. Maybe we can find it together." "Tessa, it's impossible. The difference in our situations. It won't last forever. In a year, I'll be out. I'll be free. And I'll still be the same guard who fell in love with a prisoner." "You're not just a guard. You're a man who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." 2 months before Tessa's release, Winston made a decision that changed his entire life. He asked for her hand in marriage. "I know this is crazy," he said, standing in front of her camera with a small ring in his hand, "but I can't imagine my life without you." Tessa cried as she said, "Yes." Jerry was furious when he found out about the engagement. "You're out of your mind! You don't even know her real story!" "I know everything I need to know. She's a con artist, Winston. She's been deceiving people for years. She's changed. They all say they've changed. That's their job." But Winston didn't listen. He was in love and believed in the power of love to change a person. Tessa's release day arrived on October 18th, 2024. Winston took a day off work to meet her at the prison gates. He stood next to his beat-up pickup truck, nervously adjusting the new suit he had bought especially for the occasion. In his hands, he held a bouquet of roses, the first flowers he had bought for a woman since his divorce. Tessa emerged from the administration building at 8 a.m., carrying a clear bag with her personal belongings. She was dressed in simple jeans and a white blouse, but to Winston, she looked beautiful. 2 years of conversations through bars had not prepared him to see her free. "Hi, Winston," she said as she approached him. Her voice trembled with excitement. "Hi, beautiful," he replied, hugging her. It was their first embrace without iron bars between them. They drove to the Chesterfield County Magistrate's office. The ceremony was short. Only they, the magistrate, and 2 witnesses from the court staff were present. Jerry Parker refused to come, saying he couldn't be a witness to this madness. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," said Judge Henderson, an elderly man who had been performing such ceremonies for 30 years. "You may kiss the bride." Winston kissed Tessa, and at that moment, he felt that his life finally had meaning. Tessa cried with happiness as she pressed herself against his chest. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered. "I've been dreaming about this day for 2 years." After the ceremony, they went to Winston's house, a modest 1-story building on the outskirts of town. The house had been purchased after his divorce and reflected his bachelor lifestyle. Minimal furniture, walls decorated only with diplomas and photographs from work. "This is our home," Winston said as he opened the door. "I know it's not perfect, but it's beautiful," Tessa interrupted him. "The important thing is that we're here together." She walked through the rooms, touching the furniture as if she couldn't believe her freedom. In the bedroom, she stopped in front of the mirror and looked at herself. "It's strange to see myself in normal clothes," she said. 2 years of prison uniforms. Winston came up behind her and put his arms around her shoulders. "Now you can wear whatever you want." "We'll need to buy me some clothes and find a job. I want to be independent as soon as possible." Winston was touched by her desire for independence. "Don't rush. We have time." The first weeks of their life together were like a honeymoon. Tessa enthusiastically set about furnishing the house. She bought new curtains, rearranged the furniture, and turned the faceless dwelling into a real home. Winston was amazed by her taste and ability to create comfort. "Where did you learn that?" he asked, watching her arrange flowers in a vase. "My foster mother was an interior designer. I picked up a few things from her," Tessa replied. She revealed her past in small doses, and Winston hung on her every word. Her childhood in foster homes, her difficulties at school, her first love, who cheated on her and left her with debts. That was when she first turned to fraud. "I don't justify my actions," she said, but at the time, it seemed like there was no other way out. Winston understood her. He too had made choices in his life that he later regretted. A month after the wedding, Tessa got a job at a local cafe called Mary's Diner. The owner, Mary Johnson, was initially hesitant to hire an ex-convict, but Tessa managed to convince her. "I know my background raises questions," she said at the interview, "but I'm ready to prove that I deserve a second chance." Mary was impressed by her honesty and decided to give her a try. Tessa worked as a waitress, but quickly showed that she could do more. She suggested several ideas for improving the menu, helped with advertising on social media, and established relationships with local suppliers. "This girl is a find," Mary told Winston when he stopped by the cafe to pick up his wife. "She's smart, hardworking, and the customers love her." Winston was proud of Tessa's progress. She was really changing, becoming part of the community. People in town were suspicious of her at first, but gradually began to accept her. She got along especially well with the cafe's regular customers. Tessa remembered their preferences, took an interest in their lives, and gave them advice. Elderly Mr. Williams, who came in for coffee every morning, said she reminded him of his late daughter. "You have a gift for communicating with people," Winston said one evening. "You know how to make everyone feel special." "That's important in our line of work," Tessa replied. "People don't come to a cafe just for food. They need attention and understanding." But there were also disturbing moments. Once, Winston came home earlier than usual and saw Tessa talking on the phone. Noticing him, she quickly ended the conversation. "Who was that?" he asked. "Mary. We were discussing tomorrow's menu," she replied, but there was a tension in her voice. Another time, he found a private investigator's business card in her bag. When he asked her about it, Tessa explained, "I want to find my real mother. I think it's time to deal with the past." Winston believed her explanation. He knew that the question of her origins was painful for her. By the end of their first year of marriage, financial problems began to surface. Tessa's salary at the cafe was modest, and Winston's income as a prison guard did not cover all the expenses of their new life. The house needed repairs, Tessa's car broke down, and they had to take out a loan to buy a new one. "Maybe I should find a better job?" Tessa suggested. "With my communication skills, I could go into sales." "Your criminal record might get in the way," Winston said cautiously. "Not all companies care about that, especially if you prove yourself." She started looking for a new job, but without success. Employers either turned her down immediately when they found out about her criminal record or offered her low-paying jobs. "It's not fair," she complained to Winston. "How can a person start a new life if society won't give them a chance?" Winston understood her frustration. He had seen how the system worked against ex-convicts, even those who sincerely wanted to change. At this time, a new element entered their lives. Tessa met a group of women who met at the local library to discuss books. They were the wives of local businessmen, educated and influential ladies. "They accepted me," Tessa said happily. "It was difficult at first, but now I feel like part of the group." Winston was happy that his wife had made friends, but he sometimes noticed that she came back from these meetings in a strange mood, pensive, distant. "What do you talk about there?" he asked her once. "Books, life. You know, these women have interesting lives. Caroline Hamilton, for example, started from scratch and now runs a chain of stores. Do you want to go into business?" "Why not? I have some ideas." Tessa began to talk about her plans to start her own business. First, it was a small cafe, then a gift shop, then a consulting company. "I need startup capital," she said. "Banks don't give loans to people with my background." "How much do you need?" $50,000 to start with. I've calculated all the expenses." Winston had about $30,000 in his retirement fund, but he wasn't ready to risk all his savings. "Maybe we should wait, save up some money?" Tessa didn't insist, but he could see the disappointment in her eyes. "Of course. You're right. It's better not to rush." However, conversations about money became more frequent. Tessa studied investment opportunities, read books about business, and talked to successful people in the city. "Mr. Hamilton offered me a position at his company," she said one day. "The starting salary isn't great, but there's room for advancement." Robert Hamilton was one of the richest men in the county, owner of several businesses. Tessa had met him through his wife at book club meetings. "That's a great opportunity," Winston agreed. "What kind of job is it?" "Business development assistant. I'll be helping with the company's expansion into neighboring counties." Working for Hamilton changed Tessa. She became more confident, started dressing better, and spent more time at work. Winston was happy for her success, but sometimes he felt that his wife was drifting away from him. "Robert says I have a talent for business," she said over dinner. "He's considering making me a partner in a new project." "That's wonderful," Winston said, but he was worried. Hamilton was known for his affairs with young female employees. Around this time, Winston noticed that their joint accounts were draining faster than usual. Tessa explained that it was for new clothes for work, gas for trips around the area, and business lunches. "Your salary should cover those expenses," he said. "Not yet. Robert pays based on results, but there will be a big bonus soon." Winston wanted to believe his wife, but deep down he felt that something was wrong. Their relationship, which had started out like a fairy tale, was gradually turning into something more complicated and confusing. Jerry Parker, who avoided contact with the Turner family, approached Winston one day after work. "Listen, maybe it's none of my business, but I've been hearing things around town about your wife." "What kind of things?" "People are saying she's moving into high society too quickly. Some find it suspicious." "She's just smart and ambitious," Winston defended her. "Maybe, but be careful. I'm just warning you." Winston dismissed his friend's warnings, but the alarm in his heart grew. He began to notice little things he had ignored before. Mysterious phone calls that Tessa didn't answer in his presence, new expensive things she explained vaguely, the growing distance between them. But the most disturbing thing was that Tessa had started taking an interest in his finances. She asked about his retirement savings, his life insurance, What would happen to his assets if something happened to him? "It's natural for a wife to know about family finances," she said when he expressed surprise. "Of course," Winston agreed, but the feeling of unease remained. Their second year of marriage was coming to an end, and Winston realized that their relationship was at a turning point. Tessa had changed, becoming more ambitious, more independent, but also more secretive. He loved her, but he was no longer sure he really knew her. The turning point came in February 2026, when Winston accidentally discovered the first serious lie in Tessa's stories about her past. While sorting through old documents for his tax return, he found a copy of his wife's court judgment. Curiosity compelled him to study the document closely. What he read shocked him. The case involved not only credit card fraud, but also a complex scheme to defraud elderly people. Tessa had posed as an investment advisor and convinced lonely pensioners to invest money in non-existent projects. The total amount of damage was not $200,000 as she had claimed, but more than $500,000. But the worst part was that this was not her first conviction. The documents mentioned previous arrests in other states under different names. The woman he knew as Tessa Ryan was actually Teresa Reeder, a professional con artist with 20 years of experience. Winston sat in his office, rereading the documents, feeling his world crumble. All the stories about her difficult childhood, her foster families, how she got into trouble because of circumstances, it was all a lie. Tessa was not a victim of the system, but a cold-blooded criminal. When Tessa came home from work, he met her with the documents in his hands. "Can you explain this?" he asked, handing her the court order. Tessa turned pale but quickly regained her composure. "Where did you get this?" "From our documents. You lied to me, Tessa. Or should I call you Teresa?" "Winston, I can explain everything," she began, but he interrupted her. "Explain. Explain why you lied about your past. Explain why you didn't tell me about your other convictions." Tessa sank down onto the sofa, and a look came over her face that Winston had never seen before. Cold, calculating. "Because I knew you wouldn't understand. People see a criminal record and immediately jump to conclusions." "Criminal records. Plural. You're a professional con artist." I've changed." "Changed? You didn't even give me your real name." "Tessa is my middle name. Teresa Tessa Reeder. I didn't lie about that." Winston looked at the woman he considered his wife and realized he didn't know her at all. "What else are you hiding from me?" "Nothing important. The past is the past." "No, Tessa. The past is who we are. And your past says you lie like you breathe." Tessa stood up, walked over to him, and tried to hug him, but Winston pulled away. "Don't do this," she said. "Don't ruin what we have because of some old papers." "What do we have? I don't even know who you really are." "I'm your wife. I love you." "You're using me, just like you've used everyone else." Tessa's face changed. The mask of the loving wife was finally gone. "If that's what you think, then why did you marry a prisoner? What did you expect to find in prison? A saint?" Her words hit home. Winston did know she was a criminal, but he had hoped that love would change her. "I expected to find honesty, at least in my relationship with you." "Honesty? You want honesty?" Tessa laughed, but it sounded unpleasant. "To be honest, I married you because I needed a base for a new life, a home, a respectable husband, the opportunity to fit into society." "So you don't love me?" "I'm attached to you. You're a kind man, Winston, but love is a luxury I can't afford." Winston felt something die inside him. "Then our conversation is over. Don't jump to conclusions. Think about what you'll lose." "What will I lose? Lies? Deception?" "You'll lose me, and I'm the only one who sees you as more than just an aging security guard." The words should have hurt, but Winston was too wounded to feel any new pain. "I'll spend the night at Jerry's," he said. "When I come back, I hope you'll be ready for an honest conversation." "Winston, don't go. We can work this out." But he was already putting on his jacket. "I don't know if we can. I don't know if there's anything to work out." He spent 3 days at Jerry's place, thinking things over. His friend didn't say, "I told you so," but his look said it all. What are you going to do? Jerry asked on the third day. I don't know. Maybe file for divorce. Or maybe give her a chance to explain everything? Winston was surprised. I thought you'd insist on a divorce. I will, but you love her. I can see that. If you don't get to the bottom of this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. When Winston returned home, he found that Tessa had prepared for his return. The house was immaculate, a festive dinner was on the table, and she was wearing his favorite dress. I thought you weren't coming back, she said. We need to talk, seriously. I know, I'm ready to have an honest conversation. They sat down at the table, but the food remained untouched. Tessa told him the whole truth about her past. Her childhood in a poor family, the early death of her parents, life on the streets, her first thefts to survive. Then more complicated scams, prison, new names, new schemes. I don't condone what I did, she said, but it was the only way I knew how to survive. And now, what's changed? You changed me. For the first time in my life, I have a home, a family, stability. But you keep lying. The phone calls, the secrets, the strange expenses. Tessa paused, then said, Okay, I'll tell you everything, but you have to promise to listen to the end. I'm listening. Robert Hamilton didn't just offer me a job. He offered to help me out of a delicate situation. What kind of situation? He's having problems with the tax authorities. He asked me to help with some paperwork to set up a few shell companies for tax optimization. Winston felt a chill run down his spine. That's illegal. It's a gray area. Lots of big companies do it. Tessa, you promised you wouldn't break the law again. It's not really breaking the law. I'm just advising him on paperwork. Don't lie to me. You're helping him hide income from the tax authorities. Okay, yes, but this is the last time. He pays well, and the money will help us start a new life. What new life? We can get out of here, buy a house in another state, start over. You can retire early. Winston looked at her and knew she was trying to deceive him again. How much is he paying you? Enough for our future. A specific amount. $50,000. For what exactly? For creating the documents and for keeping quiet. Robert is afraid someone will find out about his schemes. So you're blackmailing him? I'm protecting our interests. Winston stood up from the table. You haven't changed. You're still the same crook. Only now you're using me as a cover. That's not true! Then stop. Stop playing games with Hamilton. I can't. It's too late. What do you mean, too late? Tessa didn't answer, and Winston realized she had drawn him into something serious. The next day, after Tessa left for work, he decided to check their finances. What he discovered exceeded his worst fears. All the money had disappeared from their accounts. The pension fund had been wiped out. The credit cards were maxed out. Winston called the bank and found out that all the transactions had been made with his electronic signature. But he had never authorized those transfers. When Tessa came home, he was waiting for her with the bank statements. Where's the money? He asked. What money? Don't pretend. You stole all our savings. I didn't steal it. I invested it. Where? In Robert's new project. He promised to double the amount in 6 months. You took my retirement savings without permission. I'm your wife. It's family money. You forged my signature. I wanted to make things better for us. Winston looked at her and realized that the person sitting in front of him was a stranger. Give me back the money. I can't. It's already been invested. Then withdraw the investment. It's not that simple. The contract has been signed. What contract? Tessa remained silent. What contract, Tessa? I can't tell you. It's confidential. Winston realized she was lying to him. You spent the money on something else. No. Then show me the contract. Robert has it. Then let's go to his place. He's on a business trip. Tessa, stop lying. Where's the money? She started crying, but Winston no longer believed her tears. I'll explain everything, but not now. Now. I can't. It's dangerous. What's dangerous? The people we work with. They don't like it when information is leaked. Winston felt real fear. What kind of people? I can't talk. The mafia? No, not the mafia. Just serious people. At that moment, Tessa's phone rang. She looked at the screen and turned pale. "Who is it?" Winston asked. "No one important. Answer it." "I don't want to. Answer it, or I will." Tessa picked up the phone. "Hi, yes, I remember. No, not now. Okay." She hung up and looked at Winston. "Who was that?" "Rick." "What Rick?" "Rick Morgan, an acquaintance of mine." "How do you know him?" "From prison. We served time together." "A man?" "Yes." "What did he want?" "To meet, to talk about a job." "What job?" "Winston, please, it's complicated." "No, it's simple. You're working with an ex-convict on some kind of job. What kind?" "Rick's helping me with Robert's project." "What kind of business experience does he have?" "He's a document specialist." "Document forgery?" "Not exactly." "Tessa, have you gotten me involved with a criminal organization?" "No, we're just helping Robert optimize his taxes by forging documents. It's standard practice." "For whom?" "For the mafia. For big business." Winston realized the conversation had reached a dead end. Tessa wasn't going to tell him the truth. "I want to meet this Rick," he said. "That's impossible." "Why?" "He doesn't like strangers." "But I'm your husband." "That's exactly why. He doesn't want his family to know about the business." "What kind of business could be so secret?" "Winston, please. Trust me one more time." "Trust you? You stole all my money." "I'll pay you back, with interest." "When?" "Soon." "How soon is soon?" "A few months." "I don't have a few months. I need the money now." "What for?" "To file for divorce." Tessa felt as if she had been slapped. "You can't do that." "I can and I will." "Winston, if you file for divorce now, it will ruin everything." "What exactly?" "The case. People will suffer." "What people?" "Robert, Rick, others." "I don't care." "What about me? Don't you care about me?" Winston looked at her for a long time. "Honestly, I don't know. I don't know who you are anymore. I'm your wife. You're a fraud who's using me. I'm a woman fighting for our future." "Our future?" "We don't have a future, Tessa. You stole it along with the money." That night, they slept in separate rooms. Winston lay on the couch and thought about what to do next. In the morning, he made his decision. "I'm going to see a lawyer," he said at breakfast. "Wait another week, I'll figure it out." "No." "Winston, you don't understand. If you ruin everything now, we'll both suffer." "What do you mean?" "The people we work with don't like to be betrayed." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you." "About what?" "About the fact that some secrets are better kept." Winston realized that his wife had become a completely different person. Or perhaps she had always been this way and he just hadn't noticed. "I'm not afraid of your friends," he said. "You should be. They're dangerous. Dangerous enough to kill." Tessa didn't answer, but her silence spoke louder than any words. On the morning of March 3rd, 2026, Winston woke up with a firm decision. He was going to see a lawyer, despite Tessa's threats. He couldn't live with a woman who had deceived him and dragged him into criminal schemes. At breakfast, Tessa was unusually quiet. She drank her coffee without looking up, which alarmed Winston. Usually, in conflict situations, she tried to manipulate him, persuade him, flatter him. Today, she seemed detached, as if she had already made up her mind. "I'm going to see Jim Stewart after work," Winston said, referring to a local lawyer. "I'm going to start divorce proceedings." Tessa nodded without looking at him. "I see. You're not going to try to change my mind?" "No, you've made your decision." Her calmness was disturbing. Winston expected tears, recriminations, new attempts at deception. But Tessa sat like a stone statue. "Tessa, what's going on?" "Nothing special. Just the end of a story." "What do you mean?" "That it's over. Our marriage, our plans, our future, everything." There was something final in her voice that made Winston wary. "You can start a new life, find a job, move out." "Where? With my reputation in this town?" "To another town." "With what money?" "The money you stole from me." Tessa looked at him for the first time that morning. There was something cold and alien in her eyes. "There's no more money." "What do you mean, no more?" It's been spent. On what? On various things. Winston felt anger rising in his chest. What needs? That was my retirement fund. It was. Now it's gone. Tessa, you stole 30 years of my savings. I invested it in our future. What future? You said it yourself. It's over. Tessa stood up from the table. I have to go to work. We're not done talking. We're done, Winston. We're done. She left, leaving him alone with his heavy thoughts. Winston couldn't concentrate at work all day. His colleagues noticed his state, but he brushed off their questions. Jerry approached him during his lunch break. You look terrible. I feel terrible. Problems with your wife? You could say that. Want to talk about it? Winston told his friend about his discoveries. Jerry listened, growing increasingly gloomy. My God, Winston, you're in deep trouble. I know. What are you going to do? Get a divorce, go to the police. Maybe I can get some of the money back. What if she was telling the truth about dangerous people? I don't know, but I can't go on like this. Maybe you should talk to the police first. Let them sort it out. I'll go to the station tomorrow. When Winston got home that evening, he found that Tessa's car was gone. When he entered the house, he realized that she had packed her things. The closet in the bedroom was half empty, and her personal documents, photographs, and jewelry were gone. There was a note on the kitchen table. Winston, I'm sorry. I didn't want it to end this way. Take care of yourself. He felt a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. On the one hand, the problem had solved itself. Tessa was gone. On the other hand, his money had disappeared with her. Winston poured himself a whiskey and sat down in an armchair, thinking over the situation. Maybe it was for the best. He would report it to the police, start divorce proceedings in absentia, and try to get back at least some of the stolen money. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, there was a knock at the door. Winston thought it was Tessa returning for her forgotten things, but when he looked through the peephole, he saw an unfamiliar man. Who is it? He asked through the door. Rick Morgan. We need to talk. Winston hesitated. On the one hand, he wanted to meet his wife's accomplice to find out the truth. On the other hand, he remembered Tessa's warnings about the danger. What do you want to talk about? About Tessa? About the money? About your future? Winston opened the door, leaving the chain in place. Standing before him was a man of about 35, of medium height and athletic build. His face was pleasant, but his eyes were cold. What do you want? Invite me in, it's cold outside. I don't know you, but you know Tessa. She's told me a lot about you. Against his better judgment, Winston removed the chain and let the man into the house. Rick walked into the living room, looked around, and whistled. Not bad. Tessa said you lived modestly. What do you want? Sit down, Mr. Turner. We have something to discuss. I'd rather stand. As you wish. Rick sat down in Winston's chair and crossed his legs. Tessa said you were getting a divorce. That's right. And go to the police. Possibly. That's a bad idea. Why? Because it will cause problems for a lot of people. Including you? Including me. Winston felt the tension rising. What if I don't care? It should matter. You have a comfortable life, a good job, respect in the community. Why ruin all that? Tessa has already ruined everything. Tessa made a mistake, but mistakes can be corrected. How? Forget about the money. Get a quiet divorce. Don't make a fuss. And in return, you'll stay alive. The words hung in the air. Winston realized it was a direct threat. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining the situation. Tessa had obligations to certain people. Your money went to fulfill those obligations. What obligations? That's none of your business. It's my money. It was yours. Now it's gone. Winston felt anger overcoming his fear. Get out of my house. Mr. Turner, you don't understand the seriousness of the situation. I understand enough. You and Tessa stole my money and now you're threatening me. We're trying to resolve this peacefully. There's no peaceful resolution. I'm going to the police tomorrow morning. Rick shook his head. That's a mistake. My mistake was trusting Tessa. Your mistake is not listening to warnings. Winston walked over to the phone. I'm calling the police right now. I don't advise that. I don't take advice from thieves. He picked up the receiver, but Rick quickly stood up and put his hand on the phone. Mr. Turner, one last time. Forget about the money. Take your hand off. No. Winston tried to push Rick's hand away, and Rick shoved him. Winston stumbled over the coffee table and fell. Now you've attacked me in my own home, he said, getting up. I was defending myself. Get out, Rick sighed. Too bad. We could have worked this out. He headed for the door, but suddenly turned around. A gun appeared in his hand. What are you doing? Winston felt a chill run down his spine. What I have to do? Wait, we can work this out. It's too late. I won't call the police. I don't believe you. Rick, please, I have children. Everyone has families. Winston realized he was going to die. At least tell me why. Is it for the money? Money is only part of it. You know too much. I don't know anything. You know about Hamilton, about the schemes, about the connections. What connections? Didn't Tessa tell you? Hamilton launders money for some serious people. Your savings are a drop in the ocean. Then why take them? We needed a cover story. An honest security guard who invests in his father-in-law's business. A nice story for the taxman. Winston realized the scale of the deception. So marrying Tessa was part of the plan. I'm sorry. At that moment, Winston heard the front door open. His heart began to beat faster. Maybe this was his salvation? Rick? Tessa's voice rang out. Are you here? She entered the living room and saw the scene. Rick with a gun, Winston against the wall. What's going on? She asked, but her voice was calm, not surprised. He won't negotiate, Rick said. Tessa, help me, Winston begged. She looked at him for a long time. I'm sorry, Winston. I really did grow fond of you. What? You're a good man, but too honest for our world. Winston realized that his wife was also involved in what was about to happen. Tessa, don't let them do this. It's not them, Winston. It's me. She took the gun from Rick. What are you doing? Winston asked. What I planned to do from the beginning. You want to kill me? I have to. Why? Because that's how insurance works. A young widow gets $200,000. That's enough to pay off the debts and start a new life. Winston looked at the woman he loved and didn't recognize her. So all this time I've been planning your death. I'm sorry. Tessa, please. Goodbye, Winston. The shot rang out in the silence of the house. Winston Turner fell to the living room floor, his eyes closed forever. Tessa stood over her husband's body, holding the gun. Rick approached her. Everything's clean, he said. Now let's stage a robbery. They turned over the furniture, scattered things around, and opened the safe. Tessa took off her wedding ring and threw it on the floor. What a shame, she said. He was a good husband. Too good, Rick replied. Let's go. They left the house, leaving behind a scene that looked like a fatal robbery. Winston Turner's body was discovered the next morning by a neighbor who had come to pick up a tool he had borrowed. Mr. Davidson knocked on the door, got no answer, looked through the window and saw overturned furniture and a body on the floor. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Detective Sarah Hopkins, who handled most of the serious crimes in the county, examined the scene and immediately realized that this was a murder disguised as a robbery. Too theatrical, she said to her partner, Detective Mike Rodriguez. Real burglars don't turn all the furniture upside down. Maybe they were looking for something specific? Possibly, but something else bothers me. Where's the wife? The neighbors say they saw her car last night. We need to find her, right away. The investigation into the murder of Winston Turner had begun, and Detective Hopkins had no idea she was about to encounter one of the most cunning crimes of her career. Detective Sarah Hopkins spent the entire night at the police station studying the case of Winston Turner's murder. At 42, she had investigated many crimes, but this case stood out for its sophistication and cynicism. On the morning of March 5th, there was a knock on her door. Jerry Parker entered, looking exhausted and depressed. Detective Hopkins? I'm Jerry Parker. I used to work with Winston. I have something important to tell you. Sit down, Mr. Parker. I'm listening. Jerry told her everything he knew about Winston's marriage to a former convict, about his warnings, about Tessa's strange behavior in recent months. Winston said she stole his savings, Jerry said. He was going to file for divorce and go to the police. When did he tell you that? The day before yesterday. I suggested he come to you first, but he wanted to talk to a lawyer. Sarah wrote down every word. Tell me about Tessa. What did you think of her? She seemed fake to me from the start. Too perfect, you know? Like she was playing a role. Did you meet her? A few times. At Winston's barbecue, at a cafe. She was very charming, but I saw how she studied people. Not socializing, studying. After Jerry left, Sarah called the insurance company that insured Winston. It turned out that the $200,000 policy had been taken out just 6 months ago, right after the wedding. The beneficiary was Tessa Turner. Classic motive, Sarah muttered. The next step was to examine Winston's financial documents. Bank records confirmed Jerry's words. All his savings had been transferred to accounts linked to Robert Hamilton's company. Sarah decided to visit the businessman in person. Hamilton received her in his luxurious office in the city center. He was a man in his 60s with gray hair and confident manners. A terrible tragedy, he said, when Sarah told him the purpose of her visit. Winston was a good man. Did you know him? Of course, through Tessa. She worked for me as a consultant. What kind of work? Market analysis, expansion planning. A very talented woman. Mr. Hamilton, Tessa Turner invested her husband's money in your projects. Can you tell me more about that? Hamilton tensed slightly. I don't know anything about any investments. Tessa was an employee. But bank records show transfers to your company's accounts. Perhaps there's been a mistake. I'll ask my accountant to look into it. Sarah realized that Hamilton was lying, but she couldn't prove it yet. Where is Tessa now? I don't know. She hasn't been to work for 2 days. I thought she had family problems. When was the last time you saw her? The day before yesterday morning. She seemed upset. About what? She didn't say, but she mentioned some problems at home. Leaving Hamilton's office, Sarah was certain that he was hiding important information. She instructed her partner, Detective Rodriguez, to check all of the businessman's financial connections. Meanwhile, the results of the crime scene investigation arrived. The fingerprints on the overturned furniture belonged only to Winston and Tessa, but partial prints from a third person, a man, were found on the door handle. Sarah requested the databases and soon got a match. The prints belonged to Rick Morgan, who was serving time in the same prison as Tessa. This is it, she told Rodriguez. We have accomplices. They obtained arrest warrants for Tessa and Rick, but they seem to have vanished into thin air. Tessa's car was found in an airport parking lot, but CCTV footage showed that they had left in a taxi. The breakthrough came on the 3rd day of the investigation. Mary Johnson, the owner of the cafe where Tessa worked, came to the police with important information. A man came in yesterday asking about Tessa, she said. He showed me a private investigator's ID. He said he was looking for her for an insurance company. What did he look like? About 40, thin, with dark hair. He said his name was Dan Wilson. Sarah checked the private investigator licenses and found no one with that name, but the description matched Rick Morgan. Did he say anything else? He asked if Tessa had mentioned any plans to leave, and he asked if she had any problems with her husband. What did you say? That they seemed like a happy couple, although Tessa had been a little nervous lately. Meanwhile, Rodriguez discovered some interesting facts about Hamilton's companies. Several of his firms were registered to front men, and the money trail pointed to money laundering. Hamilton is involved in something big, he reported to Sarah, and Tessa was helping him with the paperwork. So the murder may not have been just about the insurance. Maybe Winston found out something that threatened the whole scheme. Sarah decided to put pressure on Hamilton. She returned to his office with a search warrant. Mr. Hamilton, we have reason to believe that you were involved in a criminal scheme with Tessa Turner. The businessman turned pale. That's absurd. Money laundering, fraud, possibly complicity in murder. I didn't kill anyone. But you knew the murder was planned? No, I swear I didn't know. Hamilton broke down. He told them about the money laundering scheme in which Tessa played a key role, creating fake documents and companies. She said Winston needed the money to legalize his operations, he confessed. A supposedly honest security guard investing in a local business. And then? And then she said her husband was in trouble, that he could ruin everything. And what did you do? Nothing! I told her to solve her own problems. Knowing that could mean murder? I didn't think about it. I didn't want to know the details. Hamilton's testimony gave Sarah the key to understanding the motive for the murder. It wasn't just an insurance scam, but an attempt to cover up a large-scale money laundering scheme. The fourth day of the investigation brought another breakthrough. Tessa and Rick were arrested at a motel 200 miles from the city. They were found with fake documents and a large amount of cash. Sarah questioned them separately. Rick immediately tried to shift all the blame onto Tessa. It was her idea, he said. She planned the murder from the beginning. From the beginning? From the moment we met Turner in prison. She studied his case, found out about his finances, and decided to use him. And your role? I just helped with the technical stuff. The documents, the contacts with Hamilton. And the murder. Rick fell silent, then said, I didn't shoot him. She did. Tessa, unlike her accomplice, remained confident. She denied all charges, claiming she was at home at the time of the murder. You have no proof, she said. Just the word of a criminal trying to save his own skin. We have your fingerprints at the crime scene. That's my house. Of course my fingerprints are there. We have evidence of your financial fraud. Slander. Hamilton is trying to shift the blame for his crimes. But Tessa's confidence wavered when Sarah showed her CCTV footage from the airport. You and Rick bought plane tickets an hour after the body was discovered, said the detective. Quite a strange coincidence. We were planning a vacation. After stealing all your husband's money? I didn't steal it. It was a family investment. In non-existent projects? Tessa realized that there was too much evidence against her. She asked for a lawyer and remained silent. The trial for the murder of Winston Turner became a sensation in the county. Local newspapers wrote about prison romance that ended in tragedy. The prosecution presented a convincing picture of the crime. Tessa Reeder, her real name, was a professional con artist who specialized in deceiving lonely men. After meeting Winston in prison, she developed a long-term plan to use him. The defendant coldly and calculatedly planned her husband's death from the day they met, the prosecutor said. She married him not for love, but for money. And when the plan threatened to be exposed, she killed the only person who trusted her. The defense tried to shift the blame to Rick Morgan, claiming that Tessa was his victim. But witness testimony and physical evidence told a different story. The jury was particularly impressed by the testimony of Jerry Parker. Winston was a good man, he said. Lonely, kind, willing to believe the best in people. She used his kindness against him. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and returned a verdict of guilty of first-degree murder. When the sentence was announced, Tessa showed emotion for the first time. She cried, but Sarah, watching from the courtroom, was not sure if the tears were genuine. The judge sentenced Tessa to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rick Morgan, who agreed to a plea bargain, received 25 years. Robert Hamilton was convicted of money laundering and received 10 years in prison. His assets were confiscated, and some of the money was returned to Winston's heirs. After the trial, Sarah met with Jerry Parker outside the courthouse. Justice has been served, he said. Yes, but that won't bring Winston back. No, but maybe his story will warn others. Sarah nodded. In her 20 years on the police force, she had seen a lot of cruelty. But this case had affected her deeply. Tessa's cynicism, her ability to pretend to be a loving wife while planning a murder, all pointed to a deep depravity. A few months later, Sarah received a letter from Tessa in prison. The former Mrs. Turner wrote that she regretted what she had done and asked for forgiveness from the victim's family. Sarah didn't respond to the letter. She knew it was just another attempt at manipulation. People like Tessa don't change. They just look for new ways to use others. The story of Winston Turner became a warning about how far a person can go in their desire to find love. His kindness and loneliness made him the perfect victim for a predator in human form. In the prison where Winston once worked, his colleagues erected a memorial plaque in his honor. It read, Winston Turner was a man who believed in the possibility of redemption. His kindness was his strength and his weakness. Detective Sarah Hopkins sometimes thought about this story. She knew that crimes like this would happen again. There would always be lonely people looking for love and predators willing to take advantage of them. But she also knew that it was her job to make sure justice was served, even when it came too late for the victim. Winston and Tessa's story is over, but the lessons it taught will live on forever.